So the BMW 5 Series is now in its 8th generation, and it is arguably in this generation where it has experienced its most radical change. That's because for the first time, what you're seeing here is the first ever BMW i5. Basically, the first ever electric 5 Series. So with the i5, BMW wanted to make an electric variant of a certain vehicle rather than make a standalone nameplate. This development path, however, leads to a few, let's just say, interesting design traits. That begins with the i5's front end, wherein its bold face comes with an enclosed illuminated grille, because why not, this is a BMW, so striking design choices are currently their vibe. You also have those adaptive matrix LED headlights, and those lovely aerodynamic 19-inch wheels. Yun nga lang, by blending both a gas and electric version, you're gonna see here, there's black trim pieces sa kanyang front bumper and side skirts. But the reason why this exists is because the 5 Series in this current generation is actually a bit taller than the outgoing G30. So to be precise, the new 5 Series is about 1.5 inches taller. And that's all due to the fact that the BMW 5 Series, the i5, and of course the brand new M5 plug-in hybrid are all using this same basic body structure. The long hood is basically for the V8 or the inline 6, while the raised floor height that's surrounded by these black trim pieces are for the battery pack of the BMW i5. Then you're gonna see here aerodynamic wheels in this i5, and as part of BMW's new design language, you now have here the model designation imprinted sa kanyang C-pillar. Then as we move towards the back of the BMW i5, we're gonna see here nice horizontal LED taillights, which looks very clean, very minimalist, and with pulsating LED turn signals. So moving towards the bottom of the car, you're gonna see silver trims. But basically yun nga, despite the need to accommodate both a gas and an electric version, I think BMW has done quite a good job in making the 5 Series look interesting, quite handsome in my opinion though. Compared to the previous G30, I think that the new 5 Series' looks will depend on how nice the color option is, along with their choice of wheels. So yeah, I think that's a good time na for us to step inside the BMW i5 to see what the interior is like in this new generation 5 Series. So moving here inside the BMW i5, if you've been in a BMW i7, well, that's pretty much echoed here in the BMW i5. So you're gonna see here a very bold section of illuminated glass because this is what BMW calls their interaction bar. So for example, if I turn on the hazard lights, yeah, it's flashing red yung buong interior ngayon ng 5 Series, or rather the i5. And so it adds a layer of interaction with the car's interior. But anyway, apart from the interaction bar, the rest of the interior feels very premium, very robust. Door thud test, the car turned off. That's the reason why I put the seatbelt here, para the car won't be turning off. But anyway, door thud test, that sounds really good, very solid. Then let's turn on the car now. Now yun nga, the dash is finished in soft touch leatherette surfaces. Then there's plenty of Veganza, by the way. This is vegan-friendly leather. No animals were harmed in the making of this leather material. Then, you also have here, of course, your place where you interact, of course, with the rotary knob controller for the BMW iDrive 8.5 infotainment system. So you've basically seen my review of this infotainment system in countless BMWs like the X5, the i4 M50. So, we're not gonna be diving through this infotainment system ng sobrang thorough, but yun nga, typical feedback, it's very responsive, very sophisticated yung kanyang operating system. Yun nga lang, it's heavily based on touch na ngayon, so if you're gonna use the controller, it's not, I think, anymore the best or the most ideal interface. So yun nga, you're gonna be relying mostly with the touchscreen here with iDrive 8.5. And of course, like the other BMWs that came out this year, this now comes with BMW Connected Drive. So it's basically connected to the internet, itong BMW i5. And what that does basically is yun nga, the SOS emergency feature, the BMW digital key where you're able to use your smartphone basically as a smart key for the BMW i5. And of course, with the connected drive feature, you're also able to monitor your car through the My BMW app. You also have here your Harman Kardon sound system, which is pretty good, though I still think that the Mark Levinson in the Lexus ES sounds a bit better compared to the Harman Kardon system here in the BMW. But again, yun nga, it's still a pretty nice sound system. It sounds very nice, and also worth talking about, by the way, is how you adjust your air conditioning, because yun nga, of course, you adjust it through the touchscreen, yung kanang fan speed and the temperature controls. But what's worth highlighting here is that hindi visible yung vents mo. It's actually hidden behind this interaction bar, and you have these arrow sliders on the bottom of your center console to basically direct your air to wherever you want it. Yun nga lang, admittedly, it's a bit confusing for me at first. I'd rather having traditional pa rin na adjustment sa air conditioning vents. But yun nga, it's something that you're gonna get used to eventually as you own the BMW i5 in the months and years to come. The back of the BMW i5 is very spacious. As mentioned nga kanina, this is basically sharing a platform with the gas-powered 5 Series, and therefore you have here a transmission tunnel which you wouldn't find in other EVs that's built on a bespoke EV platform. So, yeah, despite the center tunnel here, legroom's pretty good, I think. Headroom's also pretty good. Worth talking about, I think, here is the fact that itong front seats ng BMW i5 and the 5 Series rin in that case, natanggal na yung kanyang map pockets. I'm not sure how that would impact your usability with this car. I'm not even sure how many people actually use their map pockets sa likod ng mga front seats nila. But it's worth noting here na in the i5 or the 5 Series, wala ka na ngayon rear pocket. You also have here 2-zone climate control and sunshades here for that and this part of the window. Yeah. That's pretty good. You also have here this aluminum-like housing for the Harman Kardon sound system. And even the Veganza vegan leather feels really nice to the touch. Of course, you have here your center armrest with 2 cup holders. And yeah, of course, the usual 2 USB-C fast charging ports. Now, as for the trunk space of the BMW i5, compared to the gas-powered version, medyo mas maliit siya ng onte incrementally. But as you can see with this specific car, yung kanyang spare tire is eating up a lot into the trunk space, so that will of course affect the available space that you're gonna have with the 5 Series. So yeah, this car, by the way, doesn't have the run flat tires, which is why it has the spare tire at the trunk area. So the BMW i5 we have here is the rear-wheel drive eDrive 40, wherein as it is, it already produces strong numbers. Now, if you want breathtaking performance, that is where the i5 M60 Touring comes in. This vehicle's on another level altogether, offering nearly 600 horsepower and 820 Newton meters of torque, which is basically enough for this large luxury wagon to go from 0 to 100 kph in just 3.9 seconds. Charging speeds are also pretty good, though not the best in class. Up to 11 kilowatts in AC, which falls middle of the pack, while DC fast charging tops out at 205 kilowatts. That's unlike the Hyundai Ioniq 6, for example, which is able to accept up to 350 kilowatts. Then again, the fastest DC fast charger in the Philippines tops out at just 180 kilowatts. Nevertheless, does going electric for the BMW 5 Series make it a much better car? So let's first start off here on the highway with the BMW i5 as we're on our way to Subic ngayon from Santa Rosa, Laguna. As usual with an electric car, or rather an electric luxury sedan, lagi kong sinasabi na going electric is pretty much a natural evolution for these cars because luxury brands are always in the pursuit of making their cars ever more refined, ever more quiet, and by taking away the internal combustion engine, that pretty much makes the i5 almost as quiet as a Rolls-Royce. So syempre, road and wind noise, mas quiet pa rin ang Rolls-Royce talaga, but at least on the drivetrain aspect pa lang, this is pretty much even na with that much more expensive Rolls-Royce. And that's why the EV age is somewhat of an equalizer to the automotive industry because yung mga standout traits before of the cars during the internal combustion engine age, that's sort of being eliminated since we're ngayon all going electric. So here in the i5, yun nga, as usual, the cliches na it's very quiet because there's no gas engine, there's no transmission noise to speak of. It's very muted here. Being BMW, of course, so you kind of expect the typical German luxury car qualities like a very rigid chassis, copious amounts of sound insulation, thick glass. Yun nga, of course, the car feels very stable. The steering at these speeds is focused more on stability. So the steering slackens off for easy correction whenever you're going through these long straights ngayon sa SETX. And let's talk about ngayon the car's electric drivetrain, because with this eDrive 40 variant, what you get here is a rear drive electric motor that produces 340 horsepower and 400 Newton meters of torque. So it's just right numbers, hindi siya overly powerful, hindi rin siya underpowered. It's, yun nga again, just the right amount of power for this kind of luxury car. Of course, with EVs are kind of familiar na at this point with their instant torque. And so therefore, here in the BMW i5, and sa totoo lang, basically with other BMW EVs, I actually prefer driving their EVs in eco mode, because eco mode basically dulls the throttle to a point that there's a bit of delay, a bit of parang, I guess, tapering nung pag-deliver ng kanyang power as opposed to giving it all in just one plant of your foot sa kanyang throttle pedal. And so, at this mode, the car feels still responsive pa rin. Typical EV nga na there's instantaneous response, but the power delivery becomes smoother, and for daily drives lalo, this is kind of the mode that's appropriate for me, itong eco mode. So, of course, one of the upsides of going in that drive mode then is, of course, improved efficiency. So, with the BMW i5 or basically any other BMW electric car, based on my experience naman, like kong sasabi na at least relative to their competition or an equivalent electric car, the BMW EVs tend to be very efficient. So, I'm currently doing 5.4, actually it's kind of increasing na ngayon to 5.4 or 5.5 kilometers per kilowatt hour, which is actually pretty good for a mid-size electric luxury sedan. So that pretty much makes it about 90 to 80% accurate in terms of its claimed WLTP range of around 580 kilometers. So that's pretty good. And yes, this BMW i5 with eDrive 40 form does have the biggest range among all of the i5 variants that's being sold around the world. Now let's talk about the car's driver assistance features, because this car at least does have a degree of advanced driver assistance tech. So with the BMW i5 here in the Philippines, you get automatic emergency braking, lane departure warning, lane keeping assist, blind spot warning, rear cross traffic alert, and the car's adaptive matrix LED headlights. If you want features kind of like full speed adaptive cruise control, lane centering, and all those semi-autonomous driver assistance features, you have to opt nga lang for the driving assistance professional package, which basically adds those features on top of the automatic emergency braking, lane departure warning, and all of these standard advanced driver assistance tech. But as it is with the Philippine spec i5, yung what's really offered in our country, wala siya nung stuff na yun. But again, yun nga, it's good enough for me to have automatic emergency braking and blind spot warning, since yun naman mostly for me is what's essential these days in a modern car. Now, finally, as for handling, now that we're here in twisty roads, how does a BMW i5 perform? So, yun nga lang, as it gets more comfy, more refined, more relaxing to drive than ever itong BMW 5 Series, I do think na compared to the G30, medyo nabawasan na ng onti yung kanyang sportiness factor. Don't get me wrong, the i5 is still pretty much a very sporty car, pero it's more of compared na to the E-Class, compared na to the Lexus ES, and compared to the Audi A6. But, yun nga, compared to older and older BMWs, this is getting less sporty and more of kinda like a shrunken BMW 7 Series at this point. So with the G30, it somewhat became sportier than the F10 it replaced, pero here in this G60 generation, itong transition from the G30 to G60, yeah, it became more relaxing to drive, more cocooned, more refined, but there's a bit of expense in terms of the car's sportiness. So steering feel, for example, I'm still driving the car in eco mode, and in this mode, along with comfort, the steering is on the light side of things. When you put the car in sport mode, the steering becomes heavier, but yun nga lang, in terms of road feel, meron pa rin onte, but compared to the G30 even, mas bawas na yung steering feel niya compared to the previous 5 series. On the upside, the steering's very precise, very reactive, and talagang it really is reactive to your inputs, especially when we put na ngayon the car in sport mode. So, apart from making the steering heavier and making the throttle a lot more responsive and pretty much very instantaneous, and talagang when you plant your foot on the throttle, talagang it's really gonna give you 100% of all of that power, you're also gonna hear this sound. As mentioned sa aking BMW i4 M50 review, the sound profile of the Hans Zimmer composed sounds is actually pretty good. Unlike for example sa mga Hyundai EVs where the sound profile is very, parang alam mong it's pinatong lang over the car sound system, here in the BMW electric cars, I actually love these Hans Zimmer sounds. So it basically gives an immersion that you wouldn't find in other EVs, even compared to Porsche. Because for example, yung synthetic noises ng Taycan, though it sounds nice, pero it's not as immersive, I think, as what Hans Zimmer has done here for BMW. So yun nga, with the car in sport mode, talagang whenever you do that, talagang it's really gonna give you all of that power instantaneously and pretty much reacting based on how much you're stepping onto the throttle. As mentioned, this doesn't have electronic dampers, so putting the car in sport mode doesn't change the car's ride quality, the way it deals with bumps. So that's enough tinkering with the car systems. Put the car na ngayon in eco mode. Yun yung preferred driving mode ko sa totoo lang with the i5 or any BMW electric car. BMW still does a good job with their suspension tuning with the i5 and basically any other electric car. So, of course, this is gonna be heavy. Being electric, you have a lot of batteries keeping the car planted because yun nga, low center of gravity with the batteries mounted on the car's floor. But yun nga, though the grip levels are pretty high as we're gonna be going through these corners ngayon, the grip levels are really high, the car feels planted, and body control is really good. A great balance between comfort and sport. Even when it changes direction, it's actually very nippy itong front end ng BMW i5. So yeah, yun nga, it's trying to be multiple cars to multiple people na ngayon ng mga BMWs. They're trying to be comfortable. Basically, it's still a great all-rounder. It's sporty, livable on a daily basis, very efficient with a lot of range, and plenty of features and even gimmicks na nga at this point to satisfy luxury car or mid-size luxury car buyers in the market. Pricing for the BMW i5 starts at little under 5.8 million pesos. And that gets you this iDrive eDrive 40 variant. Now if you want a lot more power, that's where the i5 M60 Touring comes in. And that retails for nearly 8 million pesos. BMW has basically chosen familiarity as opposed to completely reinventing the electric vehicle recipe. It's basically a less costly endeavor than let's say Hyundai with their Ioniq 5 and the Ioniq 6. And it seems that shared familiarity with the gas-powered BMW is what the brand's EV customers actually want. That's because BMW's global EV sales in 2024 are at an all-time high. And it is certainly helped by the fact that BMW's EVs don't look like egg-shaped monstrosities. Yeah, I'm looking at your Mercedes-Benz, whilst being very efficient and well-engineered.